Next on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, a look at spring planting conditions across the United States.
There is no such thing as a perfect and predictable climate cycle.
Also, a look at the drought forecast for the upcoming summer season. Plus, working with your veterinarian to make better herd health decisions.
And now, NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman with your host, Susie Ross.
Hello, I'm Susie Ross. Thanks for joining us for this edition of Cattleman to Cattleman. In this week's cattle industry news, wholesale beef prices are surging and are at their highest level in more than 2 years. Analysts say light steer and heifer slaughter, along with lower fed cattle weights, have helped boost wholesale prices. Congress has returned from its spring recess, and that's keeping cattlemen busy on Capitol Hill. NCBA President John Queen testified before both the House and Senate Agriculture Committees regarding livestock industry competition. Queen's message to Congress: let the market work. He urged committee members not to restrict the methods cattlemen use to market their livestock. NCBA policy calls for minimal government interference in cattle marketing, allowing cattlemen to pursue the highest possible return on their livestock. Just a few weeks ago, USDA projected the largest corn plantings in decades. But is the spring weather cooperating? We have more in today's Market Watch.
Market Watch, brought to you by Pfizer Animal Health.
Joining us this week is Jim Robb, Director of the Livestock Marketing Information Center. Welcome, Jim.
Thank you.
It's been a few weeks now since the Prospective Plantings Report was issued, predicting a big surge in corn acres. And we also heard a lot of warnings about how that could all change due to spring weather. What's your outlook? Are we really going to get all 90 million acres planted?
We don't think we're going to get quite the USDA intentions acres planted, and we're at a very precarious point in time in terms of the plantings and how this crop evolves. Typically, we're going to need about 65% of the U.S. corn crop planted by the end of the first week of May to have a normal yielding corn crop. We're already behind schedule. This last week, USDA reported that about 4% of the nation's corn crop was planted, and we would expect to have about 9% planted. Okay. We've also had some very difficult winter weather. For example, the corn crop in Tennessee was heavily frosted in recent cold conditions. So we have a lot of uncertainty in this corn crop as we look ahead. This planting conditions and the sequence of planting and then our crop yield potential is critical to the livestock industry this year.
Corn prices really seem to have an impact right now on the cattle market. If corn plantings don't live up to initial expectations, what impact do you see that having on the market?
We've already seen some decline in corn prices recently. Just a few weeks ago, we had corn in Omaha over $4.20 a bushel, and now they're about $3.30 a bushel. And that reflects this expectations for a larger corn crop. But if we look back historically, about a 10-cent year-to-year increase in the price of corn will lower 500 to 600 pound steer calf prices by about $1 per hundredweight. So the market is very much linked together, and we think that this is a very precarious time that we're in.
As we move into summer, what kind of volatility will we see due to the weather?
Well, the volatility in the corn crop is probably going to be large, and that will directly spill over into the calf and yearling markets, much like we saw last fall when corn prices went higher and calf prices went very quickly lower. So we think that volatility will be showing up in the calf and yearling market, and producers need to be planning for this. Maybe as corn moves lower, if we get a good crop developing early in the summer, maybe doing some forward pricing, and really being on the watch for surging corn prices, which will directly feed back into lower calf and yearling prices.
Interesting. So what we need to do now is keep our fingers crossed for excellent spring weather for planting, right?
Yes.
Excellent. Thank you, Jim, for being with us. Look forward to having you again in the future.
Thank you.
For more on this year's corn plantings, please visit our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. Drought is something that affects each and every farmer and rancher in this country. But at Colorado State University in Fort Collins, Colorado, a climatologist is working to better predict weather patterns and potential drought conditions. Cattleman to Cattleman's Kevin Ochsner has more.
There is no such thing as a perfect and predictable climate cycle.
On the Colorado State campus, climatologist Nolan Duskin spends his days checking data being collected at a weather station that's served the area since the 1880s. Right now, Duskin is looking at changing weather patterns as we head into the summer season. Duskin says those patterns are often easiest to predict when forecasters are dealing with extremes.
Only when we're on the ends have climatologists shown considerable success in seasonal prediction. but the season that they do worst in is summer.
Duskin says summer weather patterns are mostly controlled by local factors, which makes forecasting drought in specific areas in the country pretty tough.
Whenever you talk nationally, there's always some area of the country that's dealing with drought, and there's always some areas of the country dealing with excess moisture. And for the last pretty much 7 years, it's been favoring drought in the west.
And unless the weather's being dictated by a strong pattern, like El Nino or La Nina, it's hard to know when those weather patterns will shift.
In the seasonal forecast, other than during times of very pronounced El Nino, which is warm tropical Pacific anomalies, or La Nina, which is the reverse of that, in those conditions, there's a little bit of long-range, multi-month forecastability, but not the skill that many people might think the forecasters are achieving.
But Duskin says data collection is what makes climatology and forecasts more accurate, and he's looking for new members of the Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network.
Anybody who's so inclined to set up a rain gauge on their place and report their precipitation into our program, Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network, welcome to the group. We'd love to have you.
For Cattleman to Cattleman, I'm Kevin Ochsner.
The Community Collaborative Rain, Hail, and Snow Network is looking for participants. Those that sign up get a rain gauge, just like this one, to measure precipitation on their property and report findings back to CSU. If you're interested in joining, head to cattlemantocattleman.org and we'll connect you to the program's website. Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, working with your veterinarian can help to decrease costs and improve herd health. We'll have tips in this week's Cattle Learning Center. Plus, a question and answer session with the leaders of NCBA's 2 divisions. But first, here's a look at this week's market summary provided by CattleFax.
To some, it's just a pasture. But to you, it's part of a livelihood to be passed along. That's why Fort Dodge Animal Health developed Cydectin with pasture health in mind. Cydectin protects against performance-robbing internal and external parasites. And it's the only insecticide proven to have no adverse effects on beneficial dung beetle populations. Cydectin from Fort Dodge Animal Health, protecting your herd and your pasture, so they can both be passed along.
There ain't no bugs on me. There ain't no bugs on me. There may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
Canine Advantix is the one that repels and kills disease-spreading fleas, ticks, and mosquitoes. Frontline Plus doesn't repel and isn't effective against mosquitoes. So ask your veterinarian for Canine Advantix, the one that repels and kills.
Yeah, there may be bugs on some of you mugs, but there ain't no bugs on me.
Purina's wind and rain minerals are research tested and field proven to provide balanced mineral nutrition essential for cattle health, growth, and reproduction. They're highly palatable so cattle consume what they need when they need it. And wind and rain minerals special formulation resists the elements so they won't blow out of the feeder and maintain their palatability even if they've been wet. Wind and rain cattle minerals from Purina Mills, building better cattle.
And now, this week's Management Minute.
First calf heifers have historically been the toughest females to get rebred. They're being asked to continue to grow, produce milk, repair the reproductive tract, and have enough stored fat to return to heat cycles in a short time. 2-year-old cows must fill all of these energy demands while their mouth is still transitioning from baby teeth to adult teeth. If these young cows are pastured with the larger, older cows, they very likely will be pushed aside when being fed. The result for these young cows is a lack of feed intake and lower body condition, which in turn results in delayed return to heat cycles and a later or smaller calf crop the following year. Bottom line, it's just good practice to sort these younger females from their older herd mates for better results.
Welcome back to Cattleman to Cattleman. In this week's Cattle Learning Center segment, we're heading to Texas, where we had the chance to go on a ranch call with 2 veterinarians.
Okay, Arden, tell me a little about the operation that we're going to visit.
This is a large ranch in the northern part of our practice, and we've worked with them for a number of years. We developed their health plan about 9 years ago, and they've been pretty active and pretty compliant. What we're going to do today is pretty basic. We're just going out. They've sold some bulls private treaty, and we'll be doing some value-added diagnostic testing, BVD, PI, ear notches. We'll be testing for brucellosis and setting up to do a TB test on it. That's what the new buyers have requested, and it's part of their herd health plan.
Arden, this is a great facility. I've heard about this operation. It's one of the largest in the area and very well managed. How did you get your foot in the door?
Glenn, I think we got our foot in the door the way most veterinarians do. We were called out on an emergency. They were unable to reach their normal veterinarian, and we were called out to look at a sick cow. I think those traditional health services are important. They're paramount to providing health care to the ranch. And we come out to this ranch to pull calves and treat sick cattle and test bulls, and that relationship needs to stay going. It's how we maintain a client-patient relationship, and I think it's vital. What we want to do is move on and offer other services.
Well, Arden, I think it's common knowledge that we have a shortage of veterinarians in the United States.
Absolutely.
And maybe it's even more critical that we strive to have these relationships between producers and veterinarians that are effective for both parties.
But Glenn, we're going to start what we've already mentioned before, and that's establishing a relationship with your veterinarian. Meet him before you have a problem. This allows the veterinarian to understand your operation, understand your goals, understand your needs as a ranch, what you're trying to achieve, and this makes our service to you all that more efficient and all that more effective.
What are some specific recommendations that you would make to a producer in terms of when they need to call you?
What we like to do when we go out to a ranch is to literally establish a list of benchmarks, a protocol, if you want to call it that, of when to call your veterinarian. And it may be something as simple as when the temperature crosses 103. If you have multiple systems involved and multiple clinical signs like a lameness or a respiratory problem combined, then it's time to call your veterinarian. And obviously, if you've had a sudden death incident or multiple deaths, it's a time to bring your veterinarian onto your ranch to try to determine what's going on. So yeah, those are some specific areas.
What about specific rules of engagement?
What we try to train our ranchers to do, or try to indicate that we would like done, is one, have the animal identified. That sounds silly, but often when you're dealing with large herds, this can become a problem. We want to know which animal we're supposed to treat. We like those animals to be caught up in a pen when we get there. When they see these green coveralls, they run for the back 40 every time. So it's important to have them caught, and then it's also important with sick animals or with any animal to treat them humanely. Let's not get them excited before we even get there. The less stress, the healthier the animal.
When we return, Doctors Anderson and Rogers head to the pasture to check on some cows getting ready to calve. And we'll talk more about the specifics of a herd health plan. We'll be right back.
In 1874, an innovation changed the beef industry forever. It was called barbed wire, and it brought an end to open range grazing and began a whole new era of cattle management. Today there's another breakthrough innovation changing the beef industry. It's called Draxxin, and it's one more way Pfizer Animal Health is working with veterinarians and cattlemen to open up a whole new era in animal health. To learn more about Draxxin, talk to your veterinarian.
From fresh tomatoes to potatoes and chicken to beef, we're as picky about our quality ingredients as you are. Because that's what we're made of.
NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, a television show by cattlemen for cattlemen.
Welcome back to NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Let's head back out to the pasture where we find Doctors Anderson and Rogers.
She looks like she's doing okay, Glenn. It's nice to see him out here calving on grass.
Yeah, it is. Maybe we can check her in a few minutes and she'll have already had it on her own.
I hope. Glenn, we need to talk a little bit about the importance of establishing a herd health calendar.
Well, the herd health calendar, of course, builds around the breeding and calving season. And many
just what we're seeing now.
Absolutely, and many times the calving season on an operation is etched in stone. Many times that's tradition, or it may have been carefully thought out, and that is the best time to calve. But I think at least that question needs to be broached before you go any further in developing a health program. Are we calving at the right time? Is the length of our calving season optimal for our management and forage resources that we have? When we have a controlled breeding season, we can place our animal health inputs into the time period where they'll basically accomplish the most for the dollar that's expended.
It seems like an overwhelming task.
Well, it's really very simple. First of all, we don't want the protocol or the calendar to be standardized. We want the questions that are asked to be standardized, so that we can create a unique health management program and protocol for a particular operation. Only you as a veterinarian in that particular area truly know what is important in that geographic area, and so it's important to sit down and wade through all the fluff and all the products that are out there and just hone in on what is most important for that operation.
Any other steps that we can begin to continue this herd health plan? We've established a calving time, a calving period. What's next?
One of the things that we can do with a herd health program is establish the total number of products needed for the year. In many cases, that may result in a cost savings for our clients.
They'll be more efficient.
They're more efficient in their purchases, and they have a tangible document that accentuates what you told them verbally. Many times we give advice as veterinarians on the fly. Maybe while you're preg testing cows, you give advice on animal health information, and it may or may not be remembered. If we want specific products given, it needs to be in a tangible document where they can follow that. Something you can hold in your hand and use that as your blueprint for your health program.
It gives us maybe not a detailed plan, but an outline to follow. Again, we go back to that protocol that we were talking about. What do? It still leaves the rancher lots of freedom and areas to move within, but gives us a framework on which to build.
Sure, and with individual clients, I'm sure you've heard many come in and say, what do I need to vaccinate for this year? And you scratch your head and try to remember what we did last year. And this gives you an opportunity to have these individual health plans for each individual client available, and you can readily recall what was given.
That makes really good common sense.
If you want to learn more about creating a herd health plan, contact your local veterinarian or go to cattlemantocattleman.org. The National Cattlemen's Beef Association is proud to represent America's beef producers. Ahead, two of NCBA's leaders explain their roles in the organization. We'll be right back.
Agriculture is a small portion of the population now, and if we're not working together, we're not going to get anywhere.
As our family, we cannot be in Washington, D.C. all the time, and I just couldn't live without NCBA representing.
They're looking out for our interests. They're there fighting for us every day.
If you got 1 cow or 2 cows or 100 cows, you need to be a member.
I'm a member of the NCBA because a long time ago, 35 years ago, I felt that I needed to know more of what my industry is doing. So I got started at the county level. If you're in the cattle industry, now's the time to join and let your voice be heard loud and clear.
You need NCBA working for you, and NCBA needs you. It's easy to join. Just call, get online, or talk with your state affiliate and sign up today.
NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, a television show by cattlemen for cattlemen.
I'm Dustin Chohan from Albion, and you're watching Cattleman to Cattleman.
It may be surprising to find out that the National Cattlemen's Beef Association is actually made up of two very distinct divisions. Steve Fogelsong is the chairman of NCBA's Policy Division, and Gary Vogt is the chairman of NCBA's Federation of State Beef Councils Division. Thanks for coming into the studio today, gentlemen. It's great to have you here.
You're welcome.
Steve, let's start with you. Where are you from and what do you do?
We're located, my operations in West Central Illinois, around Vermont and Astoria, Illinois, and we operate a cow-calf, stalker, and feeder operation.
Gary, same question. You're in the neighboring state of Michigan.
We're between Grand Rapids and Lake Michigan. We have a family farm, 3 generations, and we're in the livestock or the seed stock Angus business.
Now, the way I see this, the NCBA has 2 divisions, a policy division and a state beef council division, and you two gentlemen are the volunteer leaders for these divisions of the NCBA. Tell us what it means to be a volunteer leader and what is your role as the division chair. Steve, let's start with you.
As the policy chair, which is actually the membership arm of NCBA, my job is to kind of watch over and make sure that we get all the policies delivered to DC that our members would ask for. The membership is driven strictly by local members becoming members of their county organization, following that on through the state association all the way to the national, and that's exactly how our policy flows. It starts local, works all its way up, and then like at our annual convention just recently held there in Nashville, that policy becomes part of what we deliver in DC at the legislature. The folks that we have at work there, they go ahead and work with the legislators and the regulators, taking care of all those things to make sure that our operations are viable at home and watch over those things so that our businesses can prosper. And that's why it's important for us to be able to pool all of our resources, everybody pulling together, putting your membership dollars in to fund that office that does such a good job of delivering our message in the legislature there in DC. And it's really important then, we need as many members as we can get, because not only do we need their membership dollars, but when our folks tell us to, we also need to be able to call on them, pick up the phone, call those folks, call your representatives, call your senators, and make our voice heard. There are fewer and fewer people out there, and we need to make sure we have consolidated our efforts so we can get that point made.
That's a big job to be volunteering for. Thank you. Gary, same question to you, the Federation of the State Beef Council.
The Federation is in charge of the $1 checkoff program, and it's the checkoff arm of NCBA. And my job is to make sure that that dollar is spent wisely so that we squeeze the last bit of good out of it. We're all volunteers. We don't get paid. All the money goes to the program. And the programs are like advertising. Beef It's What's for Dinner is well known. But also research and nutritional research and beef safety and a lot of other things that enhance the profitability of the cattle business.
Gentlemen, thank you very much for coming into the studio today. It was a pleasure having you. Will you come back?
Absolutely.
You bet.
Good, we look forward to that. For more information on NCBA, visit beefusa.org. This week's Legacy Photos are a compilation of farm dogs from around the country. They're a lot of fun, so let's take a look. Please keep sending those photos. We're also looking for pictures for a special Mother's Day tribute. Head to cattlemantocattleman.org and don't forget to include those details about your photo. Next week, we'll take a tour of an ethanol production plant that has a very unique way of producing its power. Plus, we'll head to the Beef Culinary Center in Chicago for a preview of some new products. And as always, your news and market headlines. Thanks for joining us on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Be sure to tune in next week. A new episode airs every Tuesday night at 8:30 Eastern Time right here on RFD TV.